Have you been wanting to make some custom animations for your presentations, some overlays that look really good, but you're kind of overwhelmed at the idea of taking up a lot of time to do it? Well, you are in luck if you're a Mac user and you have Keynote, because the Magic Move tool is a game changer. It seriously makes animations so quickly and they still look good. So that is what we are going to do today. It is all about making these animated overlays. And yes, I made this using Keynote's Magic Move. And a bonus today is that I am also going to show you how you can create something like this, where you have your photo in a device, like a laptop or a phone or a desktop. And this is in Canva using Canva's Smartmockups tool. And it just adds that extra element to your graphics if you kind of want to take it up a notch. And it can be done in minutes. So both of these are time-saving tools. And I'm really excited to talk about today's topic because hopefully you can get creative and start making some really nice custom animated graphics with this tool. If you happen to be new and you don't know who I am, my name is Kat and I help people to create professional and engaging online presentations. And yes, that was a graphic that I made using Keynote's Magic Move. So we're going to show you a few different options today. I'm going to show you how to make a simple sidebar. Maybe you're running a meeting in Zoom and you just want a nice animated agenda. I'm also going to show you how to make the call to action that we just made and how you can make that full screen one that I also just showed you. So those are the three examples that we're going to make. And then also, as I said, that Canva Smart Mockups. So hopefully this is a topic you want to get your hands on. And if you are not a Mac user, I still think it's worth watching, first of all, because of the Canva Smart Mockups. It really is a great tool and it does not matter which device you are on. The other thing is that you might be able to still take inspiration and use some animations in your other programs like PowerPoint, etc. So there are options for you. You just might have to tweak, as you may have seen in my past video when I talk about animations in PowerPoint. You can use something like the chroma key in order to key out the backgrounds so that you can still have some transparency and have some things show and add those into your presentations. So, and yes, we have a few people here today like David, who's both Mac and PC, kind of best of both worlds. So let's just dive in. Let's get right into it. I'm going to open up my Keynote and we are just going to start with a just basic presentation. I always like to zoom out a little bit so that not only can I see all of this and it's easier for you to see, but also when you're doing Magic Move, you need to pull things off of the slide. So you want some of that area around your slide so that you can manipulate things and position them properly. So the first thing we're going to do is just get rid of all of this. So just highlight and delete. And first, we're going to make just a simple sidebar. So this could be great for an agenda. So I usually just take a rectangle, position it in the top corner. It doesn't matter if it's off the side a little bit, and just drag it to about where you want that. And let's just pick a color. I'm going to have some fun with some pink today. And I want the opacity, I want this to be semi-transparent so that when I'm showing this overlay, you can still see a little bit of the background. So let's drag that down. I usually go to around 80%. I find that's a nice transparency where you can still see the text, but you can also see the background. And you can always adjust and play with this. So let's add a title. So I'm going to add some text here. Let's change this to a title size. I'm going to change to Montserrat. And I want this to be white because I'm putting on the pink. I think that will look nice. So here, let's make an agenda for today. So it's the Magic, if I can spell, Magic Move. And I want this to be centered. So let's highlight this over on the side. We can change that to centered. So now I've got a title and you can position that in the middle of the box. And let's add some items. So today we are going to, let's add some more text. This one will be a little bit smaller and I'm going to change this again. Montserrat, let's do medium, a little bit thinner and make that white. Drag this over. And the first thing that I'm going to demonstrate is the sidebar. And there we go. Let's copy this and paste this so that I have everything set up. The next one we are going to do is a call to action, or CTA for short. And you can see how it helps you to align if you are newer to Keynote. I know it took me a while to actually adopt Keynote. I was so used to PowerPoint for so many years that when I saw Keynote, I just thought, I don't like it. And then once I got used to it, it's like, oh no, this is pretty good. And then we'll do a full screen. And so this will be a full screen animation like you saw at the start. If you did not see that at the start, well, you'll see what I mean soon. So we've got now our magic move, our sidebar, our call to action, and the full screen. Those are the 3 demonstrations that I am going to show you. So now we've got sort of what we're going to show. You can obviously take your time, play around with this, add different elements if you like, but this is the basis. So this is why I say it's quick for you to do, is you set up your slide and then we're going to make everything animate and come onto the screen. You see there's a couple comments. I'm going to look at those in a second, but let's just finish up this animation. So click off so that nothing is selected because we want to make sure that the background is transparent. So over on the side, you should see background, and instead of color fill, we're going to say no fill. Once it has turned black, that is how you know that your background is now transparent. If you happen to be working with black, like a black border or sidebar, it's going to be a little bit harder to see. So always work with that white background, other contrasting background, so you can see where it is, but you do need to change this to transparent in order to export it so that you can be seen in the picture with it. So now we're duplicating this slide. So let's duplicate. And so we have slide 1 and slide 2. So slide 2 is where we want it to end up on our actual, on our presentation. So the first one is where we are going to actually drag these items off and then create an animation. Now, theoretically, we could start with the sidebar present if you want and just have the words come in, or you could do both. So let's start by just pulling off the text. And when I say pull off, I mean just having it off of the screen. So you want to, let's say I want this title to come up from above, and maybe I want these sides. I'm just holding down Command to select all of them, and I want them to come in from the side. So let's actually leave the sidebar in as an example, and I'll show you with and without. So now click off so that it's the whole slide is selected. And when we go to animate, we go to add an effect and you should see magic move. Now, if you were clicked on, let's say one of the titles and you say build an effect, you won't see magic move because it's for the entire slide, not just for one item. So we click off, add an effect and see magic move. Now you'll see a preview. Everything comes from wherever you've positioned it. It makes its way into the second position. So really what it's doing is you are telling it where do you want it to start, and then this is where it's going to end up. And magic move has it so those things travel into that place. So let's say that I actually wanted this to come from the side as well, or maybe I want to pull it even more. The further away it is, it's going to change the speed of how it shows up. The overall animation, as you can see on the side here, is only 2 seconds long. However, everything has to come in by the end of that 2 seconds. So if I pull something further away, it will affect it. So let's preview this again. So you can see that magic move kind of swung in a little bit at the end. Now you can also play around with acceleration. Right now it's set to ease in and out. You can have just ease in, just ease out, or you can have none. So let's compare the difference. So you can see how they all come in. Now, I actually personally like this coming in from the top and then those coming in from the side. And let's try that again. So you can see you've got the title and you've got those items. And then I know it kind of snaps back, but this is ultimately what it will look like. So that is how you do the magic move. I'm just going to come over to the comments because I see a few more. Okay, so I see Carl, thanks for joining. Is it Sabi? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Thanks so much for joining. So David's saying, I've always wondered about Keynote if you can add an overlay like a shape and make it transparent all the way through so you can add a camera behind it. Oh, that's an interesting question. I would probably instead just cut out a shape, which we will see in the next one. When you subtract a shape from another shape, you create a hole. I think that would probably be the better way to go. And okay, so CK, nice that you can join today. I know you're a PC girl, but glad you could join anyway. Simply Obs, nice to see you. Okay, any other questions before we go on to the next one? Yeah, so Patrick, it is really easy. It's so easy. I literally just made this in a few minutes. Now let's actually take the bar off as well. So if I have this come out, so maybe I have this right beside because I want this to start showing up right away. Let's test that out. So now I've got the bar, I have the title, and I have the items. So one option is you could just have it like this and export it. And by doing that, when you play this animation, when the animation ends, it can just sit on your screen beside you. Maybe you don't know how long you want to go over this agenda or the topics, whatever it is you are showing. So in that case, I would just export this as a movie file, which we'll see in a second. But maybe you want this to animate back out. In that case, we're going to now create a third slide, which will be the after. So if we want an out animation, now we want to go and say duplicate. And this third slide is going to be the end result, which will be having everything come back off the screen. So I'm just going to do a similar thing. I'll move this back up. I'll move these three just off to the side here, and I'll move the bar off to the side. So we've now just moved those off, saying this is what we want the end result. So we were doing this really in reverse. So if we click on this slide, we want to tell it it's going to do the magic move. So we make sure we're not clicked on anything. We go to animate, magic move, and now you can see the example of everything going away. Now, you need to be careful because we don't want this to show up on the screen and then just disappear. So you want to add a delay. So in order to do that, you go over to this little delay here. And for the sake of, you go to automatically after a delay. So now let's just say, I'm going to say 10 seconds, which is pretty quick if you're going over an agenda, but for the purpose of this presentation, you want to have that delay. So you can test the delay by doing a preview. So now this preview has started playing. It's going to incorporate the 10-second delay. I would say if you want to animate out, that you would practice how long are you actually going to speak about these before they disappear. But that is definitely an option for you. So now that we have all three, we've got our start, our middle, and we're finished, our finish, we've got that delay, we're ready to export. So this is where we are going to export this file as a movie so that it plays as an animation. It's self-playing. I want it to play all the slides, but I don't need it to have a delay before or after. So just reset these to 0. If when you go on this slide, you see that it's selected, say, to 720, you want to change it to custom. Now, this is where I've actually been playing around with a few different file formats. Previously, I would always go to Apple ProRes 4444. That would allow me to export with transparent backgrounds. However, I have been testing the difference between the ProRes 4444 and the HEVC, which is a much smaller file, and it seems like the quality is pretty similar. And I actually have a demonstration. So I'd love to watch both, and you tell me, is there a difference? So let's do option 1. I'm going to go to a different slide now. So this is option 1. All right, you saw that? This is option 2. Okay, I made these, this is the same animation. I've exported them in 2 different file formats. Can you tell me 1 or 2? We'll do this one more time. This is number 1 file format, and this is number 2 as a file format. I would love to hear, for those who are here right now, do you actually notice a difference? So let's actually do the HEVC because it is a smaller file format, and click next. And then I want to, let's just throw this in the downloads, and I'll say sidebar demo. Okay, and we will export this. So now we're exporting this, and I have a little scene set up with just my camera. So I'm going to now add the sidebar. So let's just go into my overlays, and I'm going to throw in this. Oh, of course it's not showing up. Oh, it needs a moment to export. There we go. Anyone have opinions on the first and second? Anyone? It's okay if you don't. But they're basically 2 different files, but the size difference. So the 4444 is 150 megabytes and the HEVC is 1. So pretty big difference. And yeah, Carl's saying no difference from my Mac. So you're not seeing a difference. Okay. And oh my goodness. Okay. Let's add this sidebar. And of course, all the windows are causing a headache. Here we go. So you're going to see this added directly because I'm not using the little preview. So I'm going to position this in the corner and expand this out. So now you see the animation playing. So this is the one that we just created, and this is exported with the HEVC file format, so it's a smaller format. And then you see it disappear. So that was an animation that I made in a few minutes. So that's the first one. Now let's take a look at the next one. So let's go back to this computer, and I am going to start a new one. So let's do new. We're going to do another blank presentation. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the sides again. Delete this. So this is the one where we are going to make this call to action, the one that I showed you at the start of this. And this is where we want to make that little cutout. And I'm going to show you the Canva trick with the Smartmockup so we can add your image on a device. So first we want our core shape is going to be a rectangle. So we want to just grab this, drag it over the screen. And one hint is that we're going to make this bigger because it's going to travel across the screen. We want it to actually extend farther past the side. Let's pick the same color. So let's actually, I'm going to go even further out for a second, zoom out, and then drag this sideways. And you can make it as long as we want it big enough so that the cutout will be hidden, because what will happen is the cutout's going to be on this left side here. So it's going to swipe in and land where it is. So you want to have enough room for that cutout. So I'm going to position it like this. Now, what we're going to do next is cut out that circle that I had. So let's do a circle shape, and make sure that you hold down Shift if you want it to retain a circle shape when you expand. Otherwise it might warp. And then we're going to place this circle where you want it. So you kind of picture where you want your head to go, and you can kind of move this in or out to have this shape. And you just want to make sure that whatever's on the screen, this kind of semicircle, is equivalent on size on the right so that we can do the entire swipe. So now I want to subtract. So what you want to do is select both of these items. So I'm selecting the pink rectangle and the black circle, and I go over to the right side menu here and click on Arrange at the top. And then I go down here to Subtract, and I've now cut out that part of the rectangle. So now this is what it looks like. I've used that shape to cut it out. So that answers the other question. If you wanted to show your camera underneath something, I would just cut it out using the Subtract tool. And PowerPoint does have a similar tool. They just, it's not called Subtract. I can't remember, Intersect maybe? Can't remember off the top of my head, but it is in my other PowerPoint videos. So now we have this one. Now let's add a graphic. So I'm going to actually show you Canva. So I've got my little Canva window open over here. I'm going to create, I'll just pick an Instagram post size. It's a nice square. It's a decent resolution. And I'll pick one of my uploaded pictures. So basically what you're doing, let's say you've created a graphic that you want to then place in a computer or a picture frame or something like that. You want to upload that, so that is one of your pictures. It's media that's in your library. So let's take my thumbnail. So this is my YouTube thumbnail that I made for today's video. And so I have imported this. So I did actually make this in Canva, download it, and then I re-uploaded it so it would show up in my library. But what we are going to do now is click on Effects. And when you have the Pro plan, which for like $12.50 a month, it's worth it in my opinion. I use this almost every day. So Smartmockups, when you click on See All, you will see all the different ways that you can place your image in these different settings. So some of them have a background. For example, this one right here, the laptop, it would put my picture in here, but it has a background. So I'm not personally looking for that for this tool. So I actually want a blank background. For example, down here, all of these computers do not have a background, and that's actually what I'm looking for. So the one that you might have seen me make on this call to action, I took an iMac. But let's mix it up, and because we're talking about Keynote, let's put it on a MacBook Air. So now I've taken this picture and I've now put this on a laptop. And so this is a great example of how quickly you can take something of yours, but then put it in an element like this. And if you look at the other elements, I encourage you to explore the Smartmockups. There's all sorts of things you can do, whether that's greeting cards, you can have someone holding it in their hand, you can do frames, etc. So lots of options. The other thing you will want to do is, and I'm going to just make that a little bigger, when you download this, you need the transparent background. And so that is also something that's only available on the paid plan or the pro plan. So I'm going to download this. We're going to add this into our call to action so we can add that extra element. I'd love to hear if any of you use Canva. Now, where did this go? Untitled. My desktop is a mess right now. Okay, so I've now downloaded this. I believe it is in my download folders. So let's take a look. So I'm going to go back to Keynote. I'm going to choose media, and in my, there we go, untitled design. So let's grab that. Here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit. Go back to that 50. So now I've imported this picture, which you saw me make in a matter of moments with that transparent background. And now we have that extra element on this screen. And then let's add some sort of call to action. This is very small. We want this to be, let's pick title small. I'm going to change some of this font around, and I want this to be white. And here is where I'm going to say, saying magic move. Obviously, if it's a call to action, you are asking people to take action. So it probably wouldn't look like this, but we've got this. Now we have created this little call to action. You can do different things like have gradients in your background, kind of mix it up with the colors, but this is essentially what you're doing is putting together your scene. Now we're going to create a transparent background so that this hole will show my face. So make sure you're not clicked on anything, change the background to no fill, and then we'll duplicate this slide. So let's go to this first slide. So this is where, again, I'm just going to move this up from the top. I'll move this down from the bottom. And this one, we're going to have this shape on here, but we are going to have it so that the pink is fully covering the screen. Now, if we click off and we go to animate, this is where we can add magic move. And so you can see all of the elements coming together. That's how quickly you can make an animation like this. It really is pretty amazing. Now, in this example, I am not going to animate out. I don't want to do that because let's go back to this slide where I actually do have this animation in here. You see my face and you see the animation. If I had this that we're exiting and I had an exit animation, what would happen if I hide this animation? You're going to see why I do not want this to go off the screen. When I hide this, you actually see double of me because I have, to the left is a camera overlay that I have added to this scene. And so I want the actual animation to be showing and just to stay there. And I will simply move to another screen that just has one of me. So that's one of the things you want to think of is both timing for an exit animation. How do I know how long I'm going to stay on this slide? Because you don't want it to disappear before you're done talking about it. But then the other thing is, have you set up the scene with a camera overlay so you don't want that to be showing? That's the other thing that you really want to consider. So I see here for Patrick is saying, I think the HEVC will depend on the computer. Older computers might have a problem even though they're smaller. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that. And my Windows, okay, here we go. And then Benjamin is saying, I love Canva, but the free plan, after seeing this may change. It really, I find the Canva paid plan with the transparent backgrounds, that's amazing. Anytime I make icons for Notion, or if I'm making these types of things, it's really, really helpful. So let's go back and make the third one, which is the full screen. So I'm going to now create a new file. Again, we're just creating a blank presentation. I'm going to zoom out over and over, same thing, grab these and delete them. And now we're doing a full screen animation. Maybe I want it to swipe down. You could have it come in from wherever you want, but as you can imagine, this is a shape. The other thing, if you have seen my intro animation, I actually have a picture that has some semi-transparency. And I made that in Canva. So I took that picture from Canva and I created the transparency in Canva and then downloaded that and added that as a file here. But for now, let's keep it simple. I'm just going to use that same theme we've been using. Let's do the pink. We want some semi-transparency. So I'll put it down to 80. And then let's add some text here. So we'll do a title size. Maybe I want this to be, for character, I'm gonna do all caps, and I want this to be a little bit lighter. and I want this to be white. Okay, so we've changed that up a little bit, and maybe I'm going to call this full screen animation. Just keep it super simple, and this will be centered. And maybe I want to add another element. Let's play around because I want to show you what happens when you have shapes in here like a line. So now I've added a line on here, and I want to stretch this out. So let's make this white, and we're going to bump up the line a little bit, the thickness. And there are probably people with design knowledge that would know how to make this look really professional. For now, I just want to do this demonstration. So you can play around with where the line goes, if you want a line, how big should everything be. But for now, this is what we are doing. So we've created this. This is what it's going to look like on our screen. You always want to tap off and make sure that there's nothing in the background so that it becomes a semi-transparent overlay. And then we're going to duplicate the slide again. And let's bring these different items. So we'll go onto this first slide. We are going to have maybe the title come in from the top. Let's first try the line coming in with it from the top. And we can actually have the bar. So let's say everything comes down from the top, just as an example. So now I'm going to animate, add an effect, magic move, and you can see everything coming down from the top. If you want, let's zoom out a little bit more and play around with the items. Maybe I want this to come in at a different rate. So now let's preview this again with the line at a little different rate. So the line actually crosses over in front of the text. So that's kind of a neat effect. The other thing we can do is actually have it. So there's one where you can maybe have it come in from the side. Let's preview that. So that's one option. Or you could get kind of interesting and maybe have it come up. Let's see what happens here if we preview this. So what's going to happen is you've got this animation. Let's go back in a little bit more and preview it this way. So you can have fun with different shapes and have them come in for like in different ways and play around with it. The other thing you can do is if the shape is different when it starts, it will get to that place. That's not a good explanation. Let's say that we shorten this and maybe we make it horizontal, but we bring it up here and it's smaller. But on this screen, it's bigger. It's going to get to this. Whatever Keynote has to do, it's going to get to this end result. So let's go back to a little bit bigger and let's preview this. So now you can see it grows. And maybe you don't want it to cross over from the, let's maybe have it underneath, but just having it grow. So now we'll go back to 50 and play this animation. So you can have fun with it, basically is what I'm saying. Now in this case, if you were doing an animation like this, maybe it's the middle of a session and you kind of want to punctuate your presentation. What you could do with this is, well, what you want to do is usually have this come down on the screen and then to leave you don't want this to just hang out on the screen. You do want this to disappear. So let's go and duplicate this slide again. And this one is our end result. So maybe we want this to go back up, but you could have it go out the side or something like that. Maybe let's try having these exit out the side. And so where you want the magic move is actually the slide in front of it. So we're going back to slide 2 and we're saying we want slide 2 to go from this to slide 3. So it's on this slide that we're adding the magic move. And you'll see anytime there's a magic move, there's a little blue triangle here. So let's preview that again. So this is moving off of the side. Obviously play around. You can play around with the acceleration. Maybe you want it to be a faster exit. Maybe you want it even faster, 1 second. So those are some of the things that you can play with. But here, remember, we want this to stay on the screen for at least a second or two. So we want the transition to start automatically after a delay. So let's do 1 second and preview this. So that's how long it would be on the screen. So let's actually try exporting this. Well, not try, we will. There is no try. Okay, so movie file and self-playing, we go 0, 0, because we do not need any delay before or after. I'm gonna export with our transparent backgrounds. If this is not there, if you don't see this option, it means your backgrounds are not transparent. So go back and make sure that you do that. Let's click next. And we're going to call this one full screen. We're going to export it. And I have a little area set up. I don't think I showed you the last one, but let's do this one. So it is now exporting, and I am going to add an animated overlay. Now, one of the things around the animated overlay, if you are an Ecamm user, when you drag a movie file directly on, like the drag and drop, it's great for static images. If you just have an image and you drag it into your preview window, it will just kind of snap into place and appear. However, when you have an animation, sometimes when you drop it on the screen, it'll just start playing like a video file, which you don't want. You want it to be an overlay. So I actually prefer to click Add Animated Overlay and then select the file. And then it usually asks. So now it's small, so we're gonna put this into the corner and then drag this out, and then we can play this again. And so you can see this is the full screen animation that we made with the exit. So that is 3 examples in a really quick amount of time. I feel like most of us can probably do this. So if you have Keynote, it is already native on your computer. If you have a Mac, it is such a quick tool. And if you are a Canva user and you've been toying with going pro, this is being able to make the smart mockup. So let's actually show that, because I think I did miss that. So let's go and add the call to action, the one that I just made. So let's go add an animated overlay. And this one is, did I export it? I don't think I exported it. Okay, let's export this one because we made it, so we want to see it. So I'm going to export this movie. You've all seen this before, so I'm not gonna make you watch me do this again. Let's do that. So this is now exporting as call to action. And while that downloads, I'm gonna take a look at the comments. Hi, Shayna, nice you could join. Lynn, hi, nice to see you. Now, Lynn, you're saying you make this look so easy. It's because it is easy. That's why. It is easy. And then, oh, Patrick, does this work for Opacity? Yes. So everything you've seen so not everything. The sidebar has opacity. So when I made the sidebar, which I think is still an option. So this sidebar, this has 80% opacity. So you can actually see my clock, which yes, my clock does not change. There's a backstory. And then also when you saw my full screen, so let's go to that one. This has 80%. So you can still see me in the background. So there is opacity, but let's add the call to action because I did not add that one. And so now with this call to action, this does not have opacity, and that's on purpose. So let's set this up. I'm going to put this kind of in the corner and drag this out. And I know you can't see me doing this, but I am doing this is in Canva. So now I'm over here and I don't want to have to move. So this is where I add in a camera overlay. So now you can see my camera overlay that I've got in Ecamm, where I'm going to change it into a custom shape so I can bring it to the top, and I'm just dragging this camera overlay. So you're seeing me edit live. And you just want to make sure that your camera overlay covers so there's nothing showing. And then I just move the camera overlay underneath the call to action. So now I have positioned myself there. So if we play this again, this is full opacity because I don't actually want anyone seeing through the back of this call to action. So that is an important part of considering, am I going to have that transparency element to it and reduce that opacity? But I've been doing 80% in case anyone is looking for which opacity. And you can kind of bump it up, bump it down, see what works. But these are all part of the magic move. And why, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate your applause. So yeah, that is, that's a great question. Let's try this. I didn't plan this, but that's okay, let's try it. So let's go back to the screen. Not this one. I don't want to do this one. Where's my other? They're all untitled. Nope, it's the other one. This is, oh, I should have known. Untitled 3 is the third one. Okay, let's try this. Let's go here and let's make this element. So we go to format. We'll make it 100% and then let's preview the animation. Let's export it and see, see if it worked. I wonder if it's too quick to see, but okay, let's try. So let's export this. This will be another version. And we're going to do 0, 0. But you know, you could have something that stays on the screen and changes opacity. That could be kind of cool. I think it would. So let's do full 2. And let's create, I'm going to go to a new main camera and I'm going to add this overlay. Full 2, open, animated overlay. I'm going to position this. So let's see, do we notice? Let's replay this. I feel like it happens so quickly. Let's do this one more time. What I would probably do for this is maybe have something that's already on the screen that goes maybe from 0 to 100. And you know what? It's my live stream. I'm going to try it. So let's do another one. So I'm going to go back to the screen here. Let's play. Let's do another new one. I'm going to do a blank presentation. You're going to be so sick of seeing all of these steps. And, ooh, okay, that works. Let's do maybe a lower third or something at the bottom. And we'll play with the same color just for consistency's sake. And this is going to be, let's do the 80 again, where you can see a little bit through it. Maybe we'll do 85. And we will add some text into there. This will be a heading. And I want this to, I know that I can reset the, the default font, and I was trying to, but I figured out how to reset it once, but not all. So let's say using Magic Move, and I want to move this now in the middle. There we go. We're in the middle. And now, so this is the slide. Let's make this background transparent. I am going to go out a little bit more. We're going to duplicate this. So this now, maybe we want this to come in from the side, but we want this to just be opaque. No, not opaque at all. The opposite of opaque. We want this to be 0%. We want it to be transparent. That's the word. Okay, let's add an animation, Magic Move, and there we go. Okay, let's export this so that we can see it in the actual stream. Export to movie and just get rid of those. Let's try. This will be lower third. Okay, I'm going to pick another. I'm gonna have to clean this up later. There's so many overlays that I just added on a whim. Okay, so let's do another animated overlay, and this time I am picking the lower third. And okay, we're gonna position this and I'm gonna drag it down to the bottom. So let's replay this. That's kind of neat. Okay, so these are examples of things that you can do. Also, I do think I like the white better than the black on the semi-transparent. At least depends on the color combinations that you're doing. But this is Magic Move, and this is pretty fun to me. It's very quick. You could see how easy it is to come up with an idea and then just try it and see what you like and see what works. Do I have an animation on this? Yeah, I don't even know what still has an animation or not. Okay, that is Magic Move. It is so fast. You can be creative. You can do all sorts of things. I hope that you get in there, have fun with it, try it out. The stakes are so low, but if you needed to quickly come up with something you want to add to a presentation or to a meeting, just open up Keynote, create what you want, and then just use the Magic Move. You don't have to worry about a build order or all the different animations. You can combine those. If you want to get creative, you can have Magic Move start, and then you can have some animations in afterwards. Absolutely. But really, I want you to know that there is a super fast way, if you are a Mac user, to make animations that go nicely with your presentations so that you can look more professional and be engaging. So thanks so much for all of you who joined me today. And for anyone who has been following along with my internet troubles, I got a new modem yesterday. So I have had no problems today yet so far. Crossing my fingers that this solves it. So I got a new modem and a little bit more upload speed. So I think today went well. I don't think there was any buffering. So yeah, I'm feeling good about my internet. Anyhow, thanks so much for joining. It was a great day. Thanks so much for Carl, Joseph, John, Patrick, everyone who's been here today. And I will see you again soon. Bye.